Hey guys, so today we're going to do a hub assembly on the Hummer H3. The wheel bearing is built into the hub, so technically these are a little bit easier than, taking off a steering knuckle and taking out a Preston bearing and swapping it out, but they can also be challenging in their own ways. As I've said before, GM is notorious for rusting, so first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you've soaked everything down in PB Blast or any kind of penetrating oil. Okay, so first things first, we're going to pull off this caliper right here. You always want to make sure that you have something to hang your caliper on. As you can see here, you want to always inspect these things. I may or may not have mentioned before, I am in New England. Everything here, all you need is about 10 years and everything rusts because of the winters we have. So just kind of bear with me. I know it looks like shit, and I've actually got the lines on order as we speak. All right, so we're going to dig in. So these are the caliper hold down bolts. One here, one here. We're going to pop those off. I just want to show you guys, I put up zip ties here so that way it'll hold on to this caliper, so that way I can just let it hang here. Never let a caliper hang from its rubber hose. You will break the hose. It'll be like 40-50 bucks, and a lot of times, because as I've said, New England, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of bullshit just because of the fact that you got rust. So you really just don't want to be doing a whole bunch of brake lines on top of a hub assembly just because you didn't feel like walking to your shed and finding yourself a couple zip ties. Alright guys, so we're going to pull our rotor off once our caliper's out here. This right here is your hub and bearing assembly, okay? You're going to need a socket for the back end, and you're going to need one axle nut socket. This is a 35 millimeter or a 1 3/8, but usually it's going to be 35 millimeter. Okay, so what I was telling you guys earlier, I had soaked all this down. It doesn't even look like it with PB Blaster earlier this week because I knew that rust bucket is not a good time. So this will just make your life a little bit easier, especially if you don't have power tools or air tools. I personally use a Snap-on electric impact. This thing is absolutely fantastic. It will pull the tires off a Mack truck. No, I am not selling it. No, I'm not promoting it. This is what I have personally experienced with it. The thing has been fantastic to me. A little pricey, but it has been worth the tag. All right, so we are going to get on in here and hopefully we can get this hub off in a quick and timely manner. Okay, so one thing I also wanted to show you guys, you have two options when it comes to the wheel speed sensors on these. Usually they come with the hub assembly. Obviously, as you can see here, you can replace this if you liked. And just the speed sensor, which I may have mentioned earlier, but I don't recall. Generally speaking, these do end up getting a lot of crap on them, so they'll read as if they're bad, but it's just crap on the end. So they actually put this, so you can actually pull this out itself and check it if you want. Myself personally, because of the fact that I'm getting the assemblies, I'm going to change the speed sensor out as well. Since I'm already here anyway, I'm going to just show you guys. So in relation to the fender, you're going to see, here's your speed sensor wiring. It goes right here. Literally right on the other side of where my hand is where the clip is. You usually can actually do these one-handed and just pop them off. Sometimes you have to pop off the little clip that holds it in place. It looks just like this. Alright, so one thing I forgot to show you when you go to take these axle nuts off, if you don't have an air impact or an electronic impact, that wants to be the first nut you want to take off here, so that way you can have a friend step on the brakes so you can break that loose. The torque specs on that are 190 foot-pounds, so obviously it's not exactly an easy one, but if you put body weight on that with a breaker bar and you don't have, the brakes pressed, it's just going to keep spinning on you. Alright, now we're actually going to start getting ready to pull this out of here. So we've got all three of these bolts are out. Now these are actually pressed into the hub about, I think it's about a ½ inch to an inch. The downside is that, especially here in New England, these do rust and they rust themselves right on into that steering knuckle. So there's a few different ways we can go about this to take care of this and get this out. We can use the air hammer if you have one, which is fantastic. Usually it's really all you need. Sometimes you do have to add heat to them, which you can use either a torch, or I actually have a mini ductor. Those things are pretty awesome. Basically it's heat induction. No, I do not work for the mini ductor company. I just figured I'd throw it out there just because they do work well. And the last way to do this, if you do not own either of those things, and don't feel like putting too much brute strength and ignorance, you can actually take your socket, put an extension on here, and again, have a buddy go and turn the steering wheel once you've screwed these in just a little bit, and these should act as a hydraulic press and help press that bearing out. All right, so we're going to use a combination of a puller and a few different punches to pull this off. Like I keep saying, these get very rusted in New England, so everything is a hassle. I actually had to smoke this with a hammer a few times just to get a little bit of a gap in there so I could get some penetrating fluid in there. All right, I've been heating these up on and off. If you don't have a torch, it's okay, but it probably will, you know, make life a little harder. So I've got my puller set up here. Make sure you take your axle nut off and make sure you've got the pointed end in here on the tip of the axle, okay? You're gonna do this very slowly. Don't go too fast because things can break, and, you know, one step at a time. All right, so I mentioned about the rust. We're gonna actually knock that off today. I'm using a Dremel. You can use just sandpaper, whatever. We're just gonna go along the mating surface here where your hub assembly goes into. Again, you can just use a piece of sandpaper to do this, but I highly suggest doing this before you put the new hubs in, and then also give it a good layer of our handy dandy anti-seize. That'll just help you the next time they go out, and you won't have to worry about, you know, taking 10 years pulling those damn hubs out because they're so rusted. As you guys can see, there's a lot of dust coming off of here, and that's just all rust. Okay, just to show you guys the difference, right here is where I just started sanding down. As you can see, we're starting to get that metal back, and once that's all cleaned up, like I said, we're going to put some anti-seize on there. This is the other side for reference. It doesn't look good, does it? Also, we're going to clean this off too. Don't put that into the new hub with all that crap on there, okay? All right, so I just want to show you guys this right here. So I've been going at this with the Dremel for a bit now. There's still a lot of rust on here, and as you can see how it's all pitted, that's what happens with anything in New England that rusts, unfortunately, and that's back to exactly why we're going to put some anti-seize lubricant on here, so that way next time, hopefully it's not as much of a project as it probably was this time. You can even see here right on the lip how rusted that is as well. Okay, we've got our new heat shields in, and we are ready to start putting everything back together. So I actually put, like I told you, anti-seize all the way around on this. You always want to make sure you grease in the end of the axle shaft as well, so it does not seize itself to the hub when you put the new one on. We're basically going to reverse the procedure without all the banging and beating, so to speak, that we need to do to get the hub off. Alright guys, time for some real talk. So, sorry I didn't videotape myself putting everything back together. It was actually getting dark, so I kind of had to slam dunk it in so that way my truck would be all set. We actually just got hit with a snowstorm here, which turned into just a giant slush storm, but that's neither here nor there. So, as far as it goes with doing any of these hub assemblies, when you're doing them at home, they can be an absolute nightmare. I don't want any of you thinking that this was easy in any way, shape, or form. If I had this in a shop, I probably would have had it done in an hour tops, and that's on both sides, all done. Because of the fact that I was doing it at my house in the backyard, trying to make sure that I was doing it so that way any of you can do this as well, and using tools that any of you would have. It definitely turned into a much longer project. I know I showed you a few different ways throughout the video of how you can pull these hubs off. I ended up having to use a combination of heat and basically brute strength and ignorance because these guys did not want to come out. Please don't get discouraged if when you're doing these, it takes you a few hours, if not more, just for one side, just to pull the hub out. Rust can be a bitch on most vehicles. So this goes back to why you should always make sure that you're kind of taking care of things, rinse them down once the spring comes. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, awesome. If you could throw a like on there, a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. Subscribe. I'm always putting different videos up when I've got time. I plan on doing a lot more with the Hummer in the spring because that is my personal vehicle. It's my baby, and as you could see in the video, most of the stuff on it's pretty gosh darn rusted, so I've got to take the frame down. I've got to do a lot of work to it, so be aware that once it gets a little bit warmer and everything's not frozen here, I will definitely be putting more videos up. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you somehow, some way. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them down below.